Now I'll take you a bit more further. So now I'll stop the simulation here, and you are very well versed with the structure of the program. And I would also suggest you go ahead and check out the previous video so that you understand the setup and loop structure much better. So we understood what is that thing. Then we understood what is serial communication. We understood how to define a function. And then we defined how to create a sub function, that is like make a call of a function inside a function. That is, we had a function here, and this is also a function, but we called a function here, right, which is here. So function, this is a function inside a function, right? That is sub function. We did that thing also, and it worked really great. You can go ahead and create any number of function. It is a really good thing to do it. Okay, so that everything is in a structured manner. So we'll learn more about those things later. You can explore this much today. Now let us go further and see the one data type we saw it, that is string, we saw it, right? Now let us go ahead and do a integer, that is number. So how do we do it? So if you want to go ahead and use integer, you write int, integer, int of that, followed by the variable name. Let us see, I write the marks, okay, equals to, I write 99. Now I did not write I did not write the integer inside the double quotes, because we never write the integer values inside a double quotes. We directly mention the values out there. Pretty simple as that. We always go ahead and do this. Fine. Now when I run this, let me just print that first. So I'll write int, sorry, not int, serial dot print. Okay, and I write, let me not write it here. I'll just quickly go ahead and copy this both the lines from here and paste it there, and I write welcome, excellent, your marks is, and then I'll just pass the 99, that is marks variable. Now let me run this, start the simulation. See this, it's working as expected, right? Marks, literally amazing, it works, right? So you have a string, you saw the integer, that is marks. Similarly, we also have a float. I'll stop it. We also have a float. That is, float is whenever you have a decimal values. Let us say the percentage, fine, equals to, I write 89.9. All right. Now let me print this. Control C, and I print this. So I'll just go ahead and here and write percentage, and let me run this. So it says there is an issue here. I have not given a semicolon here, right? And you may get this kind of errors. It's perfectly fine. That's where you learn it. You start the simulation and you see this. You get 89.90, because that is a float value. So whenever you feel that you have to have a float value, use a float data type. For integer, right, for numbers, right, int. We also have a long int, we also have a short, and all of this, but I don't really recommend you go ahead and check out all of that for now and make yourself confused. Let me tell you the things which are most probably used out there, which is going to be used much in general scenarios. Similarly, we have one more very important which I want to mention, that is a bool out there. So this is a boolean, or you can write bool, whatever it is. So bool is true or false. Let us say that logged in, okay, whether he's logged in or not. So let me make it to true. So if he is logged in, he's going to be true. So I'll just go ahead and write here. I'll copy this 2 lines of statement from here and go ahead and paste it here, and then write you are logged in. You are status of log n is nothing but the logged in variable I'm calling. So that should give me true out there. Let us just see it now. Start the simulation. And this is the status of logged in is 1, because I've given a true out here, right? If I make it to false, that should become a 0. So these only have 2 values, either true or false. So Boolean in any programming languages is going to be true or false, and it is very, very important. It really plays a lot much important role. This is going to help you in creating your flags and maintaining the status of it and so on. So it's working really well with this. Now, one important thing along with this I want to show you all is something called as the scope of the variable. The scope of the variable. Now, all this were a variable itself, right? All of these were a variables, but they all were a variables of different data types. This course variable was of a string data type. This marks was of an integer data type. This percentage was of a float data type, and this logged in was of a Boolean data type. That means every single a variable here was of a different data type, right? And we were getting the values fine. And we know how to define a variable now, the different types of variable out there, and the values they take it. Very good with this. Now, the thing what I want to tell you is something called a scope of the variable. Let me show you what do I mean by that. So I'm writing the course variable here, marks variable here, percentage variable here, logged in variable here, and all of these four variables are inside this particular function, that is loop function. So when I'm accessing this course variable anywhere here, might be I'm accessing here, I'm accessing the marks here, I'm accessing the percentage here, I'm accessing the logged in variable here, I'm getting the values perfectly fine. But what if I want to access this variable course in this particular statement? Let us just copy this here, Control+C, and put it inside this function. Inside this function. Now let us see if it works. Now this course is belonging inside this function, but I'm calling that course variable inside the other function. Let me start the simulation now. Now I should get an error. Why? Because this function is different and this greet function is different. And the variables which are defined inside this function are only available for this function itself. In other words, we say that as a local scope, SCOP, local scope. The reason so is because these variables are available inside the loop function itself, inside that local function itself, and not to any other function. So you cannot access these variables from anywhere else out there, right? So these are called local scope. Fine. But question is like, what if I want to access these variables? Because not in every scenario I would have a local scope variables. I would also have a global scope that is accessible from any function out there. So how do I create that? So in such scenarios, what you have to do is you need not define them inside any function. Instead, define them outside the functions. How do we do it? Let me make all of this a global scope. Let me cut from here, and what I'll do is I'll go outside the function, I'll go above the stop, and I'll paste it here. So what I've done here, I have put them outside a function, right? So now this does not belong to any specific function, and hence they all would be global scope. Now see this is not inside the loop function, but I'm calling the course marks percentage logged in also here. This is not inside the greet function, but I'm calling the course. So let us just see now. Start the simulation here and see this. Everything works great. The reason, now they are all a global function, global variables, global scope, which means that they are all available from every single function. Now, no matter wherever in the functions, wherever in the program you want to call them, you can go ahead and call them. So many a times we require a function variables to be a global, because we want to access them multiple different places, right? And in some scenarios, we don't want to access them in every single place out there. Am I clear with this? So this is a local scope and a global scope. So if I have this, everything should work perfectly fine. Now, one more question which I want to discuss is like, why do we require a data type? Which is very, very important. Like, why did we need to mention this? Whether it is going to be a integer, or is it going to be a float, is it going to be a Boolean, or is it going to be a course, sorry, string? Why do we require this? The reason is because each of this data type has its own functions, has its own methods. For example, I may just create one more value here. I may just create one more here, int, and then I write attendance, okay, or age. Int age equals to 18, I write. Fine. Now I wrote int age 18, that is I'm creating a variable called age of data type integer, and the value is 18. Now let me do one thing. Let me add marks plus an age. So let us do this here. So what I'll do is here, I'll write serial. Let me just print here, or let me just do one thing, make it some proper namings, because naming the proper variable, like naming the variables with the proper name is very important. So let us write int num1 equals to 88 and int num2 equals to 67. Fine. Two numbers, num1 plus num2. I go ahead here in the greet function and I write here serial, or I create one variable inside this. Now local variable sum equals to num1 plus num2, num1 plus num2. Okay. And then I go ahead and write serial dot print the addition of two numbers, the addition of two number is, and then I write again serial dot print ln, and I write sum. So what did we do here? I have just created two variables, num1 and num2, which are of a global scope, remember, which means that I can go ahead and access them from any function. So what I'm doing, I'm accessing them from the function called greet, but inside this, I'm creating one variable called sum, which is of a local scope, right? Because it is inside this function. So this sum will not be available in this function or anywhere else. But then I'm telling sum is nothing but equal to num1 plus num2, and it has to print this. Let us just go ahead and see this, start the simulation out there and see if it works. So it gives me the addition is 255. We just have a look at this. Let me just increase the delay here to 3 seconds at least. That is, I'll stop the simulation first and I'll make it to 3 seconds, 3000. Okay, there's 3 seconds so that I can show you the output. So see this 155, right? It gives you a proper output because, and how did it add it? It was able to add and do an arithmetic operations on those, just for the reason that they were of an integer data type. They were of a integer data type, and that's why it was able to do an arithmetic operations into it. But if I use a string into it, that will not work out. That will give you an error because strings cannot be done with an arithmetic operations. Only integers and floats can be done with it. So this is why we are required to know like what data type are you going to use it, and we need to mention that in the program explicitly out here. I hope you are very much clear, because based on that data type, it is going to go ahead and apply the functions and methods which are associated with it. For example, in the string, we have a concat method where we can add two strings. Concatenation will add two strings, right? But that addition is something different. For example, I write Ahmed Ahmed dot concat Bangalore, which means that it is going to write Ahmed Bangalore, but it is not going to do a arithmetic operation like 88 plus 67 is equal to 155. No, right? So this is why it is very important that you mention it. For example, we have a boolean here, right? BOOL, boolean. So I can use a boolean for something else. For example, like if boolean, if my variable, for example, the thing is if logged in, I can give logged in is nothing but a boolean variable, right? So I can write if logged in, which means that if login is true, so automatically that will take it as a true itself. So this is why we are required to go ahead and explicitly mention the data type into it, and based on that we'll have their own functions coming out here. So I would request you all to go ahead and check out all the different arithmetic operators here, and check out the strings out there, create multiple different functions, call the different functions inside other functions out there, and might be you can also add an LEDs and then show like what it is and so on. You can just check out those things out here and explore out this much. In the upcoming sessions, we'll go ahead and tell you more about how can you see the some more functions into strings, some more functions to uh, integers and booleans, and then if else conditions we have. Then we have switch case statements we have, and yeah, all of this. So I'll teach you all of these things, and once we are pretty much good to go with the fundamental basics of this, we can go proceed further, and that should really help you get going much better.